WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar, 7 p.m. in Lagos. Good evening and welcome to Newslink and West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and online at wadr.org. First, our top stories. Calm returns to Nigeria's international airport after heavy gunfire. Protests erupted in Lagos, Nigeria, following demolition exercise.
The guy was shot on the leg and tear gas. I was tear gassed, and everybody started running. Are these the people we voted for?
CAF imposes huge fines on Senegal and Morocco over AFCON final misconduct. And Amnesty International presents a human rights manifesto in Benin, urges authorities to protect the fundamental freedoms.
On January 8, we saw a statement announcing this manifesto. We argued that election candidates must commit to protecting human rights as civic space shrinks.
Please stay with us for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Sankulu Jibril Janko.
Many thanks for joining us this evening. Newslink kicks off in Nigeria as Cam returns to Dori Hamani International Airport in Niamey. Heavy gunfire and loud explosions were heard in the area last night. The president of the Nigeria Foundation movement visited the area to assess the level of damage caused by the incident. Augustine Coley tells us more.
No official assessment has been made, and the reasons behind the clashes remain unknown. Niger's transitional president, General Abdurrahman Chiani, visited the site on Thursday morning. Accompanied by a large military delegation, the head of the ruling junta inspected the area to assess the extent of the damage. Among the reported damages, an Air Cote d'Ivoire aircraft was struck by gunfire during the incident. In a statement, the airline said a technical evaluation of the aircraft is currently underway. It confirms that no injuries were reported, as both passengers and crew members were outside the plane at the time of the shooting. According to local sources, the exchange of gunfire began shortly before midnight. Loud explosions and bursts of automatic weapons fired were heard, sparking widespread concern in nearby neighborhoods. As of now, Nigerian authorities have issued no official response, and the precise circumstances surrounding the incident remain unclear.
Augustine Coley filed that report. In Nigeria, protests erupted in parts of Lagos following the demolition of structures in Makoko and other waterfront communities. What began as a demonstration against alleged forced evictions and land grabbing turned tense after police intervention. Correspondent Yechenu Sasset reports.
Controversy surrounding the demolition of structures in Makoko and other communities by the Lagos state government continues. Residents on Wednesday staged a protest against what they described as land grabbing, forceful eviction and displacement across Lagos. The protest later turned rowdy when police officers deployed tear gas to disperse the crowd. A community leader, Jude Ojo, claimed that police officers fired live ammunition in addition to tear gas.
The guy was shot on the leg and tear gas. I was tear gassed, and everybody started running. Are these the people we voted for?
However, the Lagos State Police Command denies the allegation.
Nobody fired any shot from any rifle. No.
Commissioner of Police Moshood Jimo says officers only deploy tear gas as a minimum force to prevent the protesters from gaining access to the Lagos State House of Assembly.
All protests are done at the entrance of the House of Assembly, not blocking the highway.
Regarding the allegation of a gunshot injury, Jimo said the injury may have occurred while protesters were fleeing from tear gas. Meanwhile, a board member of Enough is Enough, Yemi Adamulekun, calls for restraint and accountability.
It's really just impunity, and to put it very mildly, that we can't do this and we're going to get away with it.
The Lagos state government maintains that the demolitions in Makoko and other waterfront communities are necessary to protect lives and property, describing them as part of efforts to build a safer and more sustainable megacity. For WADR, Yechenu Sasitu reporting.
Elsewhere in Benin, former Minister of Sports and leader of the opposition Democratic Party, Alassane Tigri, is undergoing police interrogation in Cotonou. He was arrested by state police at his home on Wednesday night. No official reasons have been given by the state regarding his arrest and subsequent interrogation. Since the December 7 failed coup attempt in Benin, several arrests have been recorded, notably affecting political figures. For the moment, the opposition Democrats Party has not officially commented on the arrest of its leader. Public opinion remains in suspense regarding this case that has reignited a debate on the state of political freedoms and respect for procedural safeguards in Benin. Meanwhile, Amnesty International Benin has presented its Human Rights Manifesto for 2026-2031 in Cotonou. The document, which focuses on the electoral period, aims to strengthen the protection of fundamental freedoms in the country. These include freedom of expression and assembly in response to restrictions observed in recent years. Christopher Atichi completes the story.
The document presented to the media professionals in Benin aims to influence political actors during the legislative, municipal and presidential elections regarding their responsibility to preserve individual freedoms. Key commitments include civic freedoms, guaranteeing the right to freedom of expression, association and peaceful assembly, often restricted by the digital code. The document also calls for reducing prison overcrowding and improving detention conditions in accordance with international standards. Diodone Gakpeto is Executive Director of Amnesty International Benin.
On January 8, we saw a statement announcing this manifesto. In the statement, we argued that election candidates must commit to protecting human rights as civic space shrinks. Despite progress, women and marginalized groups face discrimination and forced evictions, jeopardizing the human rights of thousands. The right to a fair trial and access to justice are among the issues the new authorities must urgently address. The authorities continue to disproportionately restrict the right to protest. They must guarantee the right to freedom of peaceful assembly by revising the penal code, which currently criminalizes any unarmed gathering that could disturb public order.
This manifesto is a response to the shrinking civic space in Benin and aims to involve future leaders in respecting national and international obligations. Signatories include Amnesty International Benin, the Bloggers Association, the Coalition of Human Rights Defenders, CDDH Benin, and the Beninese Human Rights Commission. The long-term objective is to obtain a written commitment from candidates to structural reforms, including the revision of restricted laws and the protection of human rights defenders.
A report from Azizam Adam Sule in Cotonou, voiced by Christopher Atichu.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
The minority in Ghana's parliament has hailed the Supreme Court's decision to overturn a Tamale High Court ruling that nullified the Bandai parliamentary election. They describe the ruling as a major boost for the rule of law and the will of the people. The court's judgment reinstates Matthew Njanda as member of parliament for Bandai and affirms the importance of respecting constitutional timelines and the hierarchy of the courts. From Accra, WD has now the detailed report.
The Supreme Court has, by a 4-1 majority, overturned a Tamale High Court ruling that annulled the 2024 parliamentary election in Bandai and ordered a rerun after the petition was filed outside the timeline set by law. The decision means Matthew Nyindam remains Member of Parliament for the constituency, a development the minority in Parliament says affirms a choice made by voters at the December 7 polls. Mr. Nyindam welcomed the judgment of the court.
First of all, let me say thank you to Almighty God for what He's done in my life, and to also thank my lawyers, and also use this opportunity to thank the Supreme Court judges for the ruling, because it's clear that the people wanted to change the will of the people of Bandai, but the Supreme Court has affirmed the will of the people, and I'm most grateful to them.
Following the verdict, the minority cautioned against what it calls attempts to rely on unresolved court decisions to alter the balance of Parliament, stressing that disagreements must be pursued through constitutional and legal means. Meanwhile, the Majority Chief Whip and South Dai MP, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamakbo, says the NDC is unhappy with the outcome and is exploring the possibility of seeking a review.
As a party, we are aggrieved by this decision, and therefore we will advise our candidate in the matter regarding the next step to take. This is not the end. When we obtain the ruling, and that's the certified true copy, we study it, we advise ourselves. There's a review option.
The minorities warned against sending constituencies back to the polls while legal processes are ongoing. It also praised the Supreme Court for clarifying the law on jurisdiction and statutory timeline.
The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has lifted all sanctions imposed on the Republic of Guinea following the September 5, 2021 coup d'etat. Guinean authorities have welcomed the decision, describing it as a heavy relief for the country. However, the move has drawn criticism from some socio-political actors who argue that ECOWAS should have demanded the release of political prisoners and the restoration of civil liberties before reinstating the country. Abdullah Hassan explains the details in this report.
The ECOWAS decision was made public through a press release dated January 26 following a meeting of the organization's Mediation and Security Council. This lifting of sanctions comes a week after Guinea's return to the decision-making bodies of the African Union (AU). In Conakry, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs welcomes the decision and hails it as a sign from ECOWAS that it recognizes the state's efforts for an effective return to constitutional order and institutional normalization. Meanwhile, Guinean civil society, which had been demanding guarantees regarding respect for fundamental freedoms and the opening of civic space before the lifting of any sanctions, deplores the ECOWAS decision. Alpha Diallo is a civil society activist.
As a civil society actor, I am disappointed but not surprised because for some years now, ECOWAS has completely changed its strategy in Guinea. This is particularly evident after Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger decided to withdraw from the organization. It seemed as though ECOWAS had completely bowed down to the authorities in Conakry. It accepted everything these authorities did. It did not demand respect for the agreement it had signed with them. Consequently, it trampled on most of the democratic principles that the organization claimed to defend.
ECOWAS encourages the Guinean government to continue the national dialogue towards ensuring lasting social cohesion in the lead-up to the upcoming legislative elections. Other organizations, including the Francophonie, could also soon lift their sanctions against Guinea.
Cherno Alpha Ibrahim Balde's report from Conakry, voiced by Abdullah Hassan. On diplomatic front, the president of Chad, Mohamed Idriss Déby Itno, is in Paris, France, on an official visit. He is meeting with the French President Emmanuel Macron, aimed at reviving bilateral relations between the two countries. The visit comes 2 months after the termination of the defense agreement between Chad and France. The agenda includes a one-on-one meeting between the two heads of state and address issues of common interest at bilateral, regional and international levels. Meanwhile, President Déby Itno's visit to France is generating reactions from across the Chadian political landscape. Much of the analysis is focused on the possibility of a renewed security partnership between the two countries, potentially in a different form. A Chadian political analyst, Bedesu Sulkogi, shares his view with WDR on the significance of the president's visit.
From a security standpoint, the country finds itself caught in a vice. The political and military crisis in Sudan, the emergency of rebel movements in the south, the Boko Haram insurgency in the Lake Chad Basin, and of course the rebellion in the north, which, although less active in recent years, remains a significant threat. In recent weeks, the Sudanese conflict appears to be spilling over into Chadian territory with attacks against Chadian armed forces units. Adding to this risk are internal tensions within the government. Military agreements could be reviewed during the visit, while cooperation between France and Chad has certainly experienced a period of tension. It has never been solved.
Chadian political analyst Bahidesu Sokolgi. You're listening to Newslink and West African Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and online at wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. calm returns to Niger's international airport after heavy gunfire. Protests erupt in Lagos, Nigeria following demolition exercise. Amnesty International presents the Human Rights Manifesto in Benin. Urges authorities to protect fundamental freedoms. Still ahead in the news, CAF imposes huge fines on Senegal and Morocco over AFCON final misconduct. We also have guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
While still on foreign development, the Liberian government is calling for sustained dialogue and citizens' protection in the Middle East. This call was emphasized by Liberia's Foreign Minister, Sarah Nyanti, during the United Nations Security Council open debate on the situation in the Middle East. Minister Nyanti underscored her country's unwavering commitment to achieving lasting peace in the region. She argued that the Middle East represents a critical juncture for the Security Council's ability to shape outcomes rather than merely documenting suffering.
For millions in the Middle East, war is not an interruption of life. It is life itself. There are people who are born under bombardment, who learn adulthood under occupation or siege, and who will grow old without ever knowing what it means to live without fear. Entire lives have been lived inside conflict from the first breath to the last. And nowhere is this tragedy more unforgivable than the lives of children. Some babies, they die while trying to nurse from mothers whose bodies have nothing left to give. They die not from rare diseases or unavoidable fate, but from hunger, blockade, displacement, and decisions made far from their cries. This is not abstract. This is happening in real time. Liberia notes recent diplomatic efforts aimed at reducing violence and reopening political space in Gaza and across the region. We applaud initiatives led by Qatar, Egypt, and the United States, other regional leaders, and other stakeholders, which have helped to create momentum toward de-escalation, improved humanitarian access, and dialogue. Progress, however, is fragile, but progress matters. Let's be clear. This momentum must be sustained. Therefore, Liberia encourages continued engagement with this council and with all stakeholders to deepen the progress, seize every opportunity, and consolidate the gains already made. History shows that diplomatic openings will close inevitably, not because they are imperfect, but because they are abandoned.
Liberia's Foreign Minister Sarah Nyanti. Now to judicial matters. The Gambian judiciary has begun a major step towards reforming the country's civil justice system. Judges from the High Court, including the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court, participated in the judicial training held on Wednesday, January 28 in Banjul. The exercise focused on the newly drafted civil procedure rules designed to modernize court processes and tackle long-standing case backlogs. Our Banjul correspondent Sang Donald Mendy gives us the details.
The training session aimed to familiarize judges with the draft civil procedure rules organized by the judiciary in partnership with the Office of the Chief Justice. Participating judges included members from the High Court, Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court. The High Court rules of the Gambia, which were first adopted in 1928, are undergoing the most significant reform in nearly a century. These reforms are part of broader changes intended to modernize the legal system, improve efficiency, and address the growing backlog of civil cases. Chief Justice Hassan B. Jallow stated that the new rules are designed to simplify court processes and enhance access to justice.
We've prepared some new rules for the High Court to replace the ones which have been enforced since 1928. The rules govern the procedure and the practice in the High Court, how cases should be conducted and managed, etc. When they come into force, they should make an impact on the quality and the speed with which cases are resolved in the High Court.
One of the participants, High Court Judge Ibrahim Ajete, described the training as timely. He emphasized that this exercise allows judges to share experiences and align their understanding before the rules are fully implemented.
We had series of laws that were made in different components. So this rule has now embodied all the amendments of the past from 1928 coming right down to this moment. We operate by rules.
In 2024, the Gambia Judiciary, in collaboration with the American Bar Association Rule of Law Initiative, successfully revised the rule of the High Court. This marked a significant step towards achieving the strategic objectives outlined in the Judiciary Strategic Plan for 2021-2025. The judiciary continues to confront a heavy caseload with nearly 10,000 cases still pending in the courts. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sangdana Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest this evening is Ibrahim Akan, a governance expert. He analyzes the lifting of sanctions on Guinea by the Community of West African States, ECOWAS. Guinean authorities have welcomed the decision, describing it as a huge relief for the country. However, the move has drawn criticism from some socio-political actors who argue that ECOWAS should have demanded the release of political prisoners and the restoration of civil liberties before reinstating the country. Here is Mr. Khan speaking.
I think it's a kind of implementation of what we can call a principle of reality. You know, the context in West Africa at the moment is a context of defiance to ECOWAS. There are countries that are even also on the move, like Togo. So the regional institution has just realized that to stop what we can say the kind of hemorrhage, they have to accept a number of things that in the past could not be accepted at all by the regional institution. A military government has organized election, and that election has been accepted by us, and now Guinea with a military president, a member of ECOWAS.
How would you assess ECOWAS endorsement of Guinea's transition, particularly its recognition of President Mamadi Doumbouya's inauguration and the electoral process?
You know, when I say the principle of reality, I just wanted to add, in violation of all the regional and continental normative framework. You know, we have a protocol on good governance in West Africa, I think adopted in 2001 here in Dakar. And that treaty is clear about the role of the army in any society in West Africa. And it's clear that the army cannot run a country. The army's role is to protect the country. One, even if they resign from the army and organize the election, they cannot be accepted as the new leaders of the country. Here you have somebody who has not even resigned because Doumbouya is still a general. He's still the head of the army. And it is with that position of head of the army, of a general, that he organized an election during which almost everybody who could really represent a threat has been excluded of. And also the general public, as we all know, I participated in the conversation about the election in your at your office, and the participation was very, very low. So you have somebody who was not supposed to be candidate, who excluded those who could really participate in election, and with a low participation, low mobilization of the population, that election has been accepted by ECOWAS, and now ECOWAS is even doing more to reintegrate Guinea in ECOWAS.
Those are some human rights concerns being raised by civil society actors in the country. But in your view, did ECOWAS miss an opportunity to push harder for the release of political prisoners and civil liberties before reinstating Guinea into the regional bloc?
Well, have you heard any statement by ECOWAS about what is happening in the country? No. Have you heard any action taken by ECOWAS to really start a conversation with the current leadership of Guinea-Conakry to find a solution to the concern that the Guinean political party had? No. What are the political parties that participated in this election in Guinea-Conakry? None of them. None of them participated. The government chose what they call their own opposition, their own people who can participate in the election. But for me, furthermore, it's the current situation of the judiciary in the country. People have been abducted. Families have gone to the justice system to ask for explanation. Up to now, no explanation was given. And even when you talk about the media, what is the current situation of the media in the country? You know, how many radio have been closed? How many television stations have been closed in the country? Can we say that ECOWAS doesn't know what is happening in Guinea-Conakry? They know. And knowing all of this and accepting to reintegrate a military junta, you know, in the functioning of ECOWAS, for me, is just unacceptable.
Ibrahim Khan is a governance expert. In sports, the CAF disciplinary panel delivered its verdict on Wednesday, nearly 2 weeks after the final of the Morocco 2025 AFCON between Senegal and the host country Morocco. Senegal's head coach Pape Bouna has been suspended for 5 CAF matches and will have to pay a fine of $100,000 for unsportsmanlike behavior, violation of the principles of fair play and integrity, and damage to the image of football. In addition, Iliman Jai and Ismail Assar were each suspended for 2 matches for unsportsmanlike behavior. In total, the Senegalese Football Federation must pay $715,000 to CAF. For its part, Morocco has also been sanctioned. The Royal Moroccan Football Federation, FRMF, was fined $415,000 for unsportsmanlike behavior, inappropriate behavior by players and ball boys. On an individual level, Ashraf Hakimi received the 1-match suspension, while Ismail Sabari was suspended for 3 matches and fined $100,000. Meanwhile, CAF disciplinary panel rejected complaint lodged by Morocco Football Federation concerning alleged violations of Articles 82 and 84 of the regulations of the Africa Cup of Nations imputed to Senegalese Football Federation at the end of the final of the Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2025. We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Maudu for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, formerly Instagram, and Instagram, formerly X, and Facebook at WDR English. I am Sankule Janko. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County.